Ooh, look at that. I guess we're live. All right. Well, it takes people a few minutes. We are, what is it, the day after Christmas, 2018. I'm not sure how many people would have the day off today. I've never gone live on a on a Wednesday like that. Hello, Unstence is in there talking. Yeah, I've never gone live this time of day on a weekday after holiday. So who knows what kind of response we get. It always tends to work out whatever time I decide to just randomly go live. So I'm randomly going live. You know, I learned something the other day. Hello, love Mifo, something like that. In addition to all the things that I am a content provider. Hello, Denmark, Sigrid. I'm a content provider. My job is to provide more content, more stuff for people to consume. It's the oil of our generation, our digital generation. Hello, Rava, Stephen. Wow, there's all of them jumping in there. Okay, plenty of people have the day off. Who knows what the hell time of day it is in Denmark? But you know, Denmark's a good time of day to just pop on the air, or night, apparently. So hello, Denmark and around the world. I am Uncle Birch. You probably know because you subscribed to my channel, or you wouldn't have got a notification, I think. And I teach witchcraft. Hello, Emerald City Mystic. It's what I do. I make things for witchcraft too, brews and supplies and that kind of thing. Hello, Mojave Desert. That name's too long. Where was I? I kept reading contents and then I got lost. But I've randomly gone on the air. I've done this on a couple of my Facebook pages before, and apparently I've done it on YouTube a couple times. I didn't remember that I did this on YouTube, but a little bit of time during the day, in between preparing for other classes and stuff, I just go live on the air and do this little thing we call Ask Uncle Birch. And people come up with all kinds of random questions, and so far, Uncle Birch has not been without content. Whatever people ask me, so far I've had too much to say. Oh yes, you're the best dad. True. I still have that on from Christmas, I think. So people ask me all kinds of random stuff, and I've had, so far it looks like I have too much to say about everything that anybody asks me about. So Uncle Birch, man, when it comes to witchcraft, when it comes to magic, I've got some content, y'all. I'm gonna give you some content. You give me questions, I'll give you maybe answers or things that lead to answers. But a lot of people out there saying hello and everything. Well, here's how it works. Now that we have enough people in there, first person asks a question that I notice, I answer that question. If you see me answering somebody's question, you know, ask me a question right there. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so some people commenting on there, but so, yeah, a question about witchcraft, magic. You'd be surprised how many different types I know. In that way, I'm a one-trick pony. My trick is witchcraft, magic, and the ability to teach it. Uncle Birch, what's my thought on Paradise Fires? Well, it's fucking climate change. And I don't remember which ones were arson or not. I think the Paradise Fires, for those of you who don't know, it's Paradise, California. I think pretty much the whole town wiped off the map by last year's fires. I could see it from here. I could see the plume of smoke from my house. Looked like a volcano going on. And then we breathed it for many days. And every year, it just gets worse. I grew up in Southern California, and I was gone up to Santa Cruz for a good, 20 years at least. Fire season still happened up there. Fire season is always been part of the weather here in California, as long as I've been here. But our weather gets crazier too. So our fire seasons have gotten crazier. They've gotten way more massive. Every year now I hear of whole entire neighborhoods being just like wiped off the map. We see these crazy videos of people trying to get out of the fire areas, stuff burning on all sides of them. But we also have the rain is different, the weather's different, the places where hurricanes hit are different. In lots of places in California now, we have, increasing over time, had tornadoes. And we're not equipped for tornadoes. We don't have tornado early warning systems. We should, because when I left Southern California more than 20 years ago, they just had a significant tornado, went right down the heart of Long Beach, right down Hollywood Boulevard, knocked the police communication systems off the air. But still, we get tornadoes, but not with the regularity where we have any type of early warning system or we track them. It's very random, but they are, pretty serious in their place. Nobody has cellars. This is earthquake country. So if the tornado is coming, I don't know what we're supposed to do anyway. So yeah, climate change. And don't give me that shit. Oh, well, it's global warming. What's so cool? It's climate change. Okay. Global warming in one part causes a hurricane. Chaos theory. Right? A little butterfly flapping his wings over here on the other side of the earth caused a hurricane over here. That's the butterfly effect in chaos theory. It's a small change in Mother Nature's patterns is a big change somewhere else. We don't understand. Even us, study it and maybe even worship nature. We still don't understand nature, and it's a very complex system that we can fuck up and have. And that's my thought on the Paradise Fires and the fire season in general, and climate change. Deal with it. All the scientists know. All right. Well, that was a question, wasn't it? All right. What you got? Anybody else? I saw many people typing, but I didn't notice if there was questions in there because I'm trying to pay attention to that. What makes Stragaria unique among European traditions? Well, I would say it's because it's Italian, I guess. I think there's a lot of data behind. Drink coffee right now. It's still early. It's after Christmas. Whoever asked me what I was drinking. There's a lot of historic data behind the existence of full systems of Italian witchcraft after the Inquisition, after the times of persecution. Scholars write things. People debate the scholars, refute their works. I've seen a lot of refuting of people's works, but it doesn't do away with the entire thing. Margaret Murray wrote a book called The Witch Cult in Western Europe, and it pointed to several places on the planet where strains of paganism seem to survive post-persecution time. Burning times, whatever you wanted to call those back in the day. We don't use that language as much these days because we found the narrative of the burning times lacked a certain historicness or historical accuracy that we needed. So we don't use the term as much, but persecution did happen. Entire villages destroyed, for a hunt of a witch, for all kinds of different political reasons. But Charles Leland, he wrote this book. Charles Leland's least scholarly work was Aradia Gospel of the Witches. And as witchcraft books go, Probably the oldest one we have. We have grimoires from, ceremonial magicians and things, but as far as a witchcraft book, uh, Leland. And Leland wrote some great books like Etruscan Roman Remains. And Etruscan Roman Remains would probably show you the answer to your question. It sets Strigeria apart from other European traditions. Etruscan Roman Remains is a very scholarly work and shows the methods extracted from the indigenous people of the region after slaughtering them way back in the day, as happens all over the globe. But Aradia Gospel of the Witches was, Leland's assertion was that there was an existing cult or religion of Strigeria around the area of Tuscany. And these people worshipped this kind of a messiah figure, Diana's daughter, Aradia, Aradia. You'll hear her name pronounced many ways. I think Aradia would probably be most accurate, being Italian. And in the story, she literally, came down to become a savior to the witches who were still in hiding in the region, and cause a revival of the old religion, a revolt against the Catholic Church. Varying versions of her story are told. And in the ones that I know, Leland's version, she's, Diana's daughter, come down on a beam of light, manifest here, to do all that stuff that I just said. And then the other versions, it's more of she's more of an avatar, a woman who's the spirit of Diana's daughter descends upon and maybe possesses, changes her life. So an actual physical woman. But the same things, revival of the old religion, revolt against Catholic Church, an awakening in the awareness of women, different versions of the classical text, but they all, the characters doing the same things. For the character to be doing those things would make no sense if a group didn't still exist there. And in Leland's study, and this why I find it fascinating, Leland found from the outside that the witches around the Tuscany region had two main texts that they were studying from. And one was the Keys of Solomon, the Greater and Lesser Keys of Solomon, which were available in print at the time. And this other thing, this thing called Evangelo, it was called a gospel. The Gospel of Aradia, and was written in, to sound biblical, and the idea of calling it a gospel, they say, was so that it would be able to travel around as a holy text, because there were many gospels traveling around. We need to remember the Gnostic gospels were accepted at the time, were traveling around other people's gospels, not just the gospels that we know in the Bible that we ended up with. So Aradia's gospel was allowed to travel. At any rate, this particular book was the secret possession of these witches in Tuscany, and they weren't going to let just some Yahoo read it. So he found an unscrupulous witch amongst them to sell him fragments of the text. So that's why we get his least scholarly work. We get a bunch of little fragments from some holy book, piecemeal, thrown together in a text. And there's lots of interesting things to sift out of it, and lots of absolute bullshit to sift out of it. It's a text that requires a lot of sifting. So I think those things remaining right under the nose of the Catholic Church and surviving to that day, this mid-1700s, when Leland's work happens. I think those things set those things apart. However, in the stories of Aradia, both versions, she tends to travel with her message, and in one version she even has disciples who actually travel her word, they travel with her word after her departure. She never actually dies in any of the texts. She does disappear at a certain point. Hopefully, that was an answer to your question. See, that's what I'm saying. You know, you just, no matter how off the wall the question is, most times Uncle Birch has too much to say about it, especially if it involves witchcraft. So, okay. I saw many people typing. Does somebody have a question, wants to try and get it in before the next person does? And this is very Strega thing. I'm just looking at people typing stuff. Hello, I'm Uncle Birch, and we're doing a thing called Ask Uncle Birch. People ask me questions about magic, witchcraft, and see what kind of crazy thing I come up with. The things that I will say to you, one thing's consistent, will probably be things you will not often hear anyone else say. But they're the good shit. Full moon, usually for any rituals? No. You know, Gardner and the Wiccan experience, you know, hits upon many things that, and uses many things that were not Wiccan specifically. You're going to have to ask again, Shane. I already got a question in here now. And the lunar connection of witches goes way back into many cultures, and they tended to be more lunar. You know, classical witchcraft, you know, we know, tended to be more based in lunar mythos. There are other systems of magic that were more based in solar mythos, and those kind of got put together in a framework that actually absolutely makes sense. The whole Wheel of the Year thing. By Gardner and other people, but the connection to the lunar, it goes way back, and it makes sense. Lunar's, you know, it's the moon's closer to us, and the effect that it has on fluids cannot be denied. And we are mostly fluid. We are mostly water. Water's also the water that we're made of is salt water. Salt water conducts electricity. Everything's electricity here. We're a big biomechanical mechanism, and the electricity running through our body is through the salt water. The salt water is the conductor that conducts these things to where they need to go, as is the ocean. And all water is a conductor, but salt water is a better conductor, as is the ocean. And we see the effect that the moon has on the ocean. It's the reason we have waves. It's the reason we have tides. And I always like to give her due. Our species, you know, mammals, would never have crawled out of the ocean had it not been for tides. And we would have not, you know, if we did in fact evolve from other forms, we would not have in the way that we've come to know it without the moon doing her stuff. So when the moon's growing, it is a good growing time, you know, stuff bringing time, and the moon is waning, good time for taking things away. However, a lot of witches seem very limited by that, and then I always say, you know, you got to change the way you're focused on the goal. You've got a goal. There's this thing I need to accomplish, and you know this. You know, let's. Money spell is always a good thing. You know, you need to pay the rent, you need to do the money spell, but it's the waning moon. Well, there are things in the waning moon that are keeping you from the money. Okay, there's obstacles. There's, you know, your roads need to open. These are waning moon types of things, but you always got to remember, Uncle Birch, this is banish. If you banish, you must invoke. So don't try and have a quick little spell, especially on something important like that. You need to have a two-parter. I'm going to banish these things or remove these obstacles, and then around the new moon, you're going to invoke the other shit. Make it a bigger thing. And it could be, once you start doing these things, the thing you're going to do the money spell for starts to manifest in your life. Don't not do the spell. You'll fuck that all up. You must invoke. You must invoke. Even if the thing's already manifesting, sometimes magic has a weird way of time travel. And I've seen shit manifest before I did the thing. But it's directly in line with the thing I was going to do and the supplies I got. You just got to still do the thing. So, that, I guess, is my answer for your question about the moon. Okay. All right. Other questions? You're welcome. All right. Who's got some? We're at 20 minutes. I'm not sure how long I'm going to go, but it's going good so far. Ask Uncle Birch something. He'll drone endlessly on about it. You'll see. We'll see. All right. Keep texting different things, but not questions yet. I'm Uncle Birch, doing a thing we like to call Ask Uncle Birch. I do this kind of thing in other formats where people pay money to sit there and ask me stuff. So let's see. I am feeling well today. I am working on my new class. Those of you that didn't hear, I'm going to start doing the year-in-a-day courses in witchcraft again through a different format. And people have to contact me at witchschool, that's WITCHSKEWL, @gmail.com, and I'll give you the details. Luciferian witchcraft, you asked me that question twice, so I'll go to that one. I saw somebody ask another question, which I'll probably forget, and you'll have to ask it again too, but I have no problem with Luciferian witchcraft, as long as it's not confused with satanic witchcraft. I don't have a problem with satanic witchcraft either, but not knowing the difference between Lucifer and Satan is problematic for me, and it denotes a lack of scholarship, especially amongst Christians who often like to do it. We got Satan, we got Lucifer, we got the snake. These are all different characters, having nothing to do with their own existences. And the snake, of course, knowledge. The ancient symbol for knowledge. Whenever we saw a snake in the ancient text, that's what it was about. The reason why they sent St. Patrick to drive the snakes out of Ireland. There were no snakes in Ireland. They were driving the Druids and other pagan groups out of Ireland to drive the knowledge out of Ireland. But Lucifer, well, Lucifer's kind of important. I mean, outside of the entire tale, let's just skip the entire tale. Let's, as Mitata in Palo tells me, a piece of wisdom that I use very often. Don't be a fanatic, okay? I'm here to demystify mysticism a lot of days. I'm here to show you how we can see that same thing scientifically, and it all makes even more sense when we do it that way. Biblically, the majority of the characters in the Bible were planets or stars. Witches knew this. The Bible, like the snake thing, the Bible's written in a language of metaphor. And the people, places, and events that we're seeing have nothing to do with the people and events and the places we're seeing. The stories have nothing to do with actual characters doing a goddamn thing. They're telling us something a planet or a star did. And they're telling it in a historic context where if we were to do some research, we could probably go back and see it's an astrological calendar of history. It's an astrological calendar of events that predated Christianity. All of the stories were borrowed from more ancient cultures. And I always like to tell this one, it's the most graphic example of this. But the Sumerians, one of the most ancient cultures on earth, chiseled like a lot of ancient cultures, they chiseled their mythos into stone, so it lasted until, you know, some guy, Zachariah Sitchin, was the first person to decipher their language. And in their language, they had intimate knowledge of every planet in our solar system, every moon surrounding every planet in the solar system, and the contents thereof. In other words, we have only just recently discovered a moon, I think it's one of the moons of Jupiter, has an ocean with an ice shell. But the Sumerians knew that. Zachariah Sitchin did not know that. Science did not know that. The Sumerians knew that. The Sumerians knew everything about our solar system, and they had these old names for the planets. In one of their stories, it was a fascinating story because as they tell this story from a third-person perspective, the entire solar system that we're in now was a pinball game of molten objects bouncing off each other and destroying each other and slamming into each other, and everything that existed was covered in volcanoes, and so they're telling this story, and as you read this story, you're going, well, wait a minute, there's not a planet in the solar system that the Sumerians could be standing on watching this occur. Either they're sitting in a spaceship, which some of their texts read like that, or it's prophecy. They're witnessing this in some spiritual plane or something. They tell this story about this planet named Cain, and Cain was on an elliptical orbit. Everybody else was just a regular synchronous. Everything, the solar system was calming down, and everything was setting into their orbits, and moons were setting into their orbits. But this one motherfucker, Cain, was on this elliptical orbit, way out, way back. And in the story the Sumerians tell, Cain flies in and slams into its brother, Abel, a planet called Abel, killing Abel, destroying Abel. Entire story then we get in the Bible about two dudes the Sumerians told as two planets. And right where the Sumerians said this happened is the asteroid belt. What would happen if a planet was destroyed? It would then spread out in its orbits, the asteroid's orbits around the sun, and create an asteroid belt. That's what a destroyed planet would do. And right where they said this happened, that's our main asteroid belt. It causes all our grief and shit, right? Now, that's just Cain and Abel. Lucifer was the morning star. Lucifer, they called a star. We often think it's a star. Many people look at it, thinks it's a star. It's Venus. Now, in the old language, in the old way that they would tell the story, so Lucifer is Venus. Planets, as we know, a lot of you just remember a couple months ago, it was pretty tough on a lot of people when Venus went retrograde for like a couple months, in conjunction with some other shit that just fucked up people's relationships and emotional lives and things. For a planet going retrograde, it looks like it's going backwards to us because we passed it in our orbit, basically. And this is oft described as a fall. So, if Lucifer was a planet that they thought was a star, fell, then, right around then, 72 angels fall with him. I believe, based on my reading of the text, those were meteors or asteroids, 72, a meteor storm of 72 meteors shortly after Venus went retrograde. Now, we have all of our computers, we can go and track astrology, we can track astronomy, back way beyond when we existed. You know, we couldn't figure that out. They're trying to tell us that when Venus went retrograde, there was a meteor storm, 72 meteors, that's recorded somewhere. There's something else happening. There's a reason why they're telling us this in the text. It's beyond the mythical character Lucifer. Lucifer was a name given to the planet by the Romans. I'm going to go there just because it came up, but there's this one book out there, I think it's called Queen of Hell. Really expensive book, only one person ever wrote this, where Lucifer is equated with Hecate. And Hecate is Lucifer's consort. Now Hecate's Greek, Lucifer's Roman. Made no sense. What we do have is the Greeks would have an equivalent to that. They wouldn't borrow a Roman god, stick it over here. They'd have an equivalent god over here. The Romans would do the same thing over here with the Greeks. That's the way this tended to work. But first of all, Hecate was too badass to need a consort. She'd, you know, beat some dude over the head if she wanted to fuck him, but she wouldn't have to have a consort. That's why she's the badass goddess of witchcraft. Lucifer, Hecate. So these are some of my views. I guess my view, to answer your question, would be in line with that. I see that there's something else being told here. There's a bigger picture that the ancients once told, and the Bible is just retelling stories from the cultures that predated it in a way that the meaning's entirely lost. Thoughts on Kabbalah, the great work. Well, yeah. I'm an old school witch, and I recognize even Gardner. Even Gardner was borrowing his circle casting from the ceremonial magics, and the ceremonial magics definitely steeped in Kabbalah, and the method that he originally was using to cast a circle would be the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram. Wicca loses the techniques to do that because it's too complicated for the Wiccans to figure out, okay, we're going to banish something and then we're going to invoke something. And it's too complicated for them to figure out 4 different ways to draw a 5-pointed star, I guess. But that was the original system that a lot of witchcraft borrowed. Recognize Gardner borrowed that. We talked earlier about the Strega in Italy. They were studying the Gospel of Aradia and the Keys of Solomon. From the Keys of Solomon, we get the material that will later become the LBRP, the Lesser Banishing Ritual, the Pentagram. These are the sources from which those magics derive, and so absolutely, I think Solomon would actually maybe be pre-Kabbalah. They'd be the roots of the Kabbalah. I think that's how that would go. Kabbalah is not my prime study, but I recognize that I've studied a lot of Kabbalah in my witchcraft, and I know a bunch of Hebraic god names and archangels and ways to call them, and that kind of thing. And the great work in that context was your work in this spirituality. This right here, this is my great work, teaching. I don't know how long the internet will last. I'll probably write a book at some point, but right now it's all digital. This right here is gonna be here after I'm gone. I look at people like the Tiptoe Witch out here who's passed away. Her Facebook page still continues to post content. The video is still getting hit. She's still out there teaching. Other people, my colleagues, come and gone before me. It's part of my great work. This legacy here that I'm going to leave behind, I guess. I don't know. What are you going to do with your magic? What impact are you going to use that magic to make the world a better place? That's the great work. that was everybody's job in spiritual paths to leave an impact on the world, and a good impact, change the world. You figure out how to do magic, and you can change the world in accordance with will. Hey, change the world. Change your world first. A lot of those ideas back in the day tended to lean more towards the right-hand path. And the right-hand path became too fanatical to where we have people still talking, usually in Wiccan circles, say you can't do magic for self-gain. What? Why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Tell that to the Luciferian witch out there. I'm sure he's into magic for self-gain. I'm sure he's allowed to do it. And you know, Luciferian witchcraft would allow you the magic of pride. There ain't nothing wrong with that either. You know, false pride's a bitch, but you know, have some pride. Have pride in your work. Have pride in yourself. A healthy arrogance can be appealing. False arrogance, pisser. Let's see where the hell is it going? But yeah, so some of the ideas that I think some of those ideas did come, you know, because Kabbalah was a very right-hand path, very connected to, you know, Judaic mysticism, and some very right-hand path, serving God type of stuff. And I often say, you know, I got two hands. I got a lot more work done with two hands. You know, I could maybe screw in a screwdriver with my right hand, but sometimes I need to wrench the fucker. Use another tool on the screwdriver. But you know, both hands, man. You can't help anybody living under a bridge. Maybe you can, I don't know. It never worked for me. You got to get yours too. So get something for yourself. But there's no way to take all of the Kabbalah out of the witchcraft. But I think we should recognize that. And I try to, when I teach those things in my courses, and I try to teach from whence they came. That should still be cultural appropriation. You know, shouldn't be okay for us just because we're European to steal from the Jews. Ultimately, that's what's happening there. We need to recognize when we use somebody else's magic. We need to recognize and give credit where credit's due. And for me, I learned that a witch needs to follow the pattern. We're pattern seekers. We're into all this weird, you know, astrology and astronomy and tarot and divining omens and everything. But we all have a pattern-seeking mind that's beyond the norm. And for me, your history is a pattern. The way magic comes to me through the complex interweaving of sharing, stealing, and warring nations conquering each other. I want to know that. I want to know how I got that magic. Where'd that magic come from? Who came up with it? What were they studying that helped them come up with it? I want to know everything about that. This is me. So I guess that's my thoughts on Kabbalah here. Let's see. Somebody talk about ancestors. Well, yeah. Past couple months, you've been getting a pulling to deal with your ancestors. Well, of course. Did you miss that? Samhain, man. That's what it's all about. That's why all of the cultures on Earth have rituals and holy days around the time of Samhain regarding the dead. Day of the Dead's the next day. The All Souls Day for the Catholics, next day. Day after Samhain. This time of year, and then Christmas, solstice. This time of year, it's like, it's very family time, solemn time. There's no accident that Ancestry.com and 23andMe offered sales for their Ancestry DNA packages around Christmas and solstice, because this is the time of year people are thinking more about their ancestors, their relatives, those that came before. That's the right thing to do. you know, there's a lot of ways to do it. But, you know, the first thing to do is, you know, set up an altar space, a shrine for your ancestors. I've seen some of the African folk traditions I work in, a white cloth on a piece of table and a glass of water is all you need. In other ones, there's 9 glasses of water. And then I've seen variations, and that's more. It comes up in hoodoo, that comes in palo, that comes up in a spiritismo. But then I've seen a lot of you know, pictures on those same altars. And that was really popular in South American cultures and European cultures. In the cultures where you go to an old graveyard and they have a picture of the person on the graveyard, well, the pictures on altars for the dead, for the ancestors, was very popular. And then usually some sort of offering plate for them. Universally, in every tradition that I've studied in, and the ones that I haven't studied in but know about, ancestors all want a couple things. And maybe this will change with time, but they want alcohol and tobacco. Some traditions, they want you to leave tobacco out. Some, you're gonna light a cigarette and leave it for them. Others, you're gonna light up a cigar and shotgun it, blow it backwards on the objects, on the altar, I guess. Others, like, you know, Native American, they would sprinkle the tobacco. They even sprinkle it to the 4 directions, and sprinkle some for the ancestors rather than actually igniting it. But then alcohol, and then, you know, that's where it varies. You know, where are your ancestors from? You know, what's the primary alcohol there? You know, like, let's see, my Scottish and Irish ancestries, you know, it's going to be whiskey. But then there's Irish whiskey and Scotch whiskey, so I don't know. You know, Southern, South American cultures, the Caribbean, rum. Rum is going to be the thing. South America, tequila. The Russians, vodka. The Ossators, the heathens, mead. That's what your ancestors want too. They want to smoke and get drunk, and yeah, some of them want to get high too. I saw somebody asking that there. All right, so that was a question. Probably do a couple more. I'm at 42 minutes. I gotta go do some other stuff soon. Gotta go get another class in witchcraft together. I'm getting ready to start February 1st. My year and a day course, and it's going to go through Gumroad, and it's going to be a subscription-based thing that can automatically bill you every month, so I don't have to deal with that. The worst part about doing that kind of class, I love interacting with people. I love talking about witchcraft all year long with them. I hate having to remind them to pay me. So Gumroad's going to do that for me. So that's going to start in February 1st. Contact me at witchschool, WITCHSKEWL @gmail.com. I'll send over the details about how to sign up for that, how to subscribe to that. And on the side, I'm teaching a downloadable course in witchcraft without Wicca. That's kind of ongoing. And then I've got several of my old courses downloadable. You just buy them outright, download my old year and a day course. You can download it. You know, hey, if you want to learn some shit and you got it to spend, I absolutely recommend that course too, because that's close to 10 years old. I think I'm going to have different things to say on the craft. Thoughts of difference between New Orleans hoodoo and other hoodoo practices. I haven't been to New Orleans yet. Somebody asked me, I think the last time I was here, was the difference between New Orleans voodoo and Haitian voodoo. Haven't been to New Orleans yet. I am presenting at this next year's Hex Fest. So I'm going to be around New Orleans, August 9th through the 12th, I think it is. I'm teaching a 3-part workshop in magical warfare. And, not many places I could teach such a thing But Hex Fest didn't bat an eye. Approved the course right away. So I'm gonna be doing my kind of thing in my kind of way there. So it'll be my first trip to New Orleans. I'm getting a vacation out of it. I just got to work, three days in a row, once a day, and then learn all kinds of other stuff and have a great time. So come see me there. I'm sure there's variations. New Orleans is kind of a melting pot of these African spiritualities, and there's always been a strong influx of the European witchcrafts too. I don't know if it's like American Horror Story Coven or anything like that, but there's always been the different types there, and there's always been an exchange. Some people borrow, some people steal, and some people trade information. And magical cultures did a lot of exchanging. Magical cultures recognized long ago that they're all persecuted from the same source, and they're all trying to get to the same thing. So there's a lot of magics get exchanged there. So I'm sure there's lots of variations, but see, my problem is my witch mom. She had a lot of stuff in her bag of tricks, and I learned a lot of stuff about the Orishas before I knew what the Orishas was. I was using High John root, when I was 13 years old. I didn't know that was hoodoo till probably the last 15 years or so. We know so much about hoodoo now, and what's hoodoo, what's conjure. A lot of those things, I grew up just, that was just witchcraft to me. I remember somebody, they're doing Crown of Success conjure oil. I'm like, shit, I learned to brew that when I was 14. That's a conjure oil? I don't know. I don't have a problem with that. I want to know. I want to know where all these things came from. And it just shows that my witch mother, Judith Dufresne, she had a lot of stuff in her bag of tricks. And damn if I didn't fall far, close to the tree. I got a lot of stuff in my bag of tricks. I grew up in the back of her witch store, and I grew up to have a witch store. I grew up to, brew and make magical products and teach witchcraft. So, yeah. I guess I figured out what I was going to do at 13 years old. So, yeah. It didn't fall far from that tree. The woman I call Mom. And now here in Hollywood, I met a Polero, who is the godchild of my good friend Candela. He owns a restaurant here in town, an Italian restaurant. And turns out that my witch mother is his actual grandmother. So, although you can't really say she's hoodoo, this is this one guy that I know that can actually refer to his hoodoo grandmother and not be full of shit. And yeah, a friend of mine here, in a small fucking world moment. And I was talking to him, and I mentioned my witch mother as his actual birth grandmother. It's a big fucking town, okay? And Long Beach is another big town, and that's where she was from, and that's where I was from. And I don't even know how that segued into that, but there's a little story for you. Let me do maybe two more questions. I'm almost up to an hour, and I gotta do some other stuff. So if you have any more questions to ask Uncle Birch, you never know what random time I'm gonna pop up and do this stuff again, or if I'll never do it again. Shocking. Now's your chance. What you got? Another question? You're typing? I see you typing. Oh, some of you are typing like this. Okay. And send. You ever on the East Coast? CD393. Not a long time. I probably should go to Salem at some point, but yeah, not a long time. Been to New York. Might have an occasion to go to Florida someday. Know some workers in Texas. That's probably the only thing that ever get me to go to Texas. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll get to the East Coast. Who knows? So this my Hex Fest will be my first time presenting in this fashion. I've emceed. I've hosted some stuff. I've gone to many things. I've supported a lot of my friends' work, but I'm a cancer. I do a lot of work from home. Not a whole lot of travel, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen after Hex Fest, or the people that see me signed on to Hex Fest might try and get me, say, hey, you don't want to get me to come to New York, give me a plane ticket and hotel fare, and we'll talk. How's Hollywood versus Santa Cruz? No, you can't compare the thing. Santa Cruz is in this little bubble. Not a whole lot gets in and not a whole lot gets out, and it's a small town. And I liked it for a great number of years, moving from the city, and I swore I'd never go back. Then I spent a year in Grass Valley, where you can't get anything delivered, not even a pizza. You got to drive 20 minutes to get a cup of coffee. I experienced, and it's Trump land. Rifle racks, MAGA stickers. Oh my! After a year there, it made it a lot easier to come back here. And now I'm so in the fucking thick of it that I spend my time in the thick of it. Up here we have this rooftop terrace where I do a lot of my work up above, just a little above the skyline. And I can see everything that goes on here, and the sunset, the moonrise. There is traffic noise because it's in the city, but somehow, I don't know, somehow this works for me too. I've been, Santa Cruz forest and beaches, Grass Valley forest, city. I still find magic here. It's a different type of magic. It's a whole other city magic that I'll probably have to do a whole series of classes on city magic. Yeah, so that's, I don't know how to really tell you the difference. Night and day, I guess. And it's, Santa Cruz is a very small pond, too small a pond for brick and mortar stores to, thrive. And when I realized that I had been paying for my brick and mortar store to stay open for close to 3 years off of my internet money, I'm not a business major, but I'm not stupid either. That was not a thing I was going to continue to do. I closed up and moved everything out on the internet, and I got a lot more done for all of them. Yeah, all right. You get something set up in Ireland, and get my expenses paid at the very least. Get me paid too. That'd be great. But at least my expenses paid. Got to bring my wife. But hey, I got so much fucking Irish blood, is silly. And hopefully I'll get me a decent ancestry DNA kit, the one that I took years ago. Didn't really narrow things down, but I got a lot of Irish blood, and I would love to visit Ireland. Yeah, give me an occasion to teach over there and pay for the expenses and stuff. And yeah, love to go to Ireland. My homeland. I never went to Ireland. Most of my life, I had a lot of ability to go to Ireland, but somehow I always knew I would get there and I would run off and join the IRA back in the day, and I would have very strong connection to my motherland there, and a hatred for the Brits. All right. I do one more question. Whoever gets it in quick enough, or whatever question I like the best. I gotta go get this other class ready. One shot Patty. What are you personally studying now? CD393. Well, I am. Hoodoo's kind of a constant study. I started a course with Catherine Ironwood, which basically is you buy her book and then go through her book and send her some homework. I never sent any homework, and then there was some bad falling outs in those communities. You can watch my old or listen to my old Widdershins episodes about the endangered elephant in the room and Tiger Gate and all that. So I don't. It's still some good material, but I'm not working closely with her course. I study much hoodoo with many people. and I find all of the rules of magic that I learned growing up in Hermetics are the same rules being utilized in the hoodoo and conjure. Whether they want to recognize them as Hermetics, I don't even think they have to give Hermes credit for it. Hermes just happened to write some shit down that happened to be happening, that happened to be the laws of magic, that happened to be the laws of magic that every magical system in the world is using. So I see those. I see a lot of the brewing techniques and methods that I learned growing up in hoodoo. Little bits and things here and there that are unfamiliar to me, but not that much. And then Palo. I am a Polero. I am a priest in Palo Mayombe, a Tata. I do not teach that at this time. I do not speak for that at this time. Even though I'm a priest, I recognize there's a lot to learn, and I held off on becoming a priest in that tradition a lot longer than most people do. Most people just try and rush through it and become a priest and start initiating people into the tradition right away, and have a munanso, godchildren, and I don't want any of that. Any of that. And when Lucero is right over there and you can't see him, when the Nkisi wants me to do that, then I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to listen to anybody that says anything about my skin. My DNA test at least, brought up some African blood. Everybody's does. But I'm not even going to play that card. I followed the rules. I went through the initiation process. And when it's time for me to do that, I would do that. And anybody that doesn't fucking like it can earn a place in my pot. So that I'm currently studying, and it's a large portion of my study, but not something that I'll talk a great deal about at this time. And there we have it. Thank y'all for joining me. We're just about an hour. Thanks for joining me for another Ask Uncle Birch. Subscribe and you'll be notified when I randomly get a wild hair up my ass and do this shit again, which is pretty often. So, where would I be without you? Thanks for coming.